Hey y'all, happy Wednesday. Hope you all have had a good week so far. So today we are going to move into our first region of Africa that we are going to be looking at. Before I tell you which part of Africa we're going to, I want you to take a second and guess where all four of these come from. What part of Africa do they come from? The North Africa, South Africa, East Africa, West Africa, or Central Africa? So take a second, look at it, and write down what you think the answer choice is for these. Okay. So once you have that, we're going to be moving into our regions of Africa. And there should be a note sheet on the first page of this module if you want to use the notes I created for you. If you would rather take notes yourself, that is up to you. But the notes are up there on Canvas on the first page of this module if you need them. So our first region, and the one that all four of these pictures come from, is actually going to be West Africa. So we are going to look at the people, the climate, resources, economics, and history of the West African region over the next probably week or two. So we're going to start by looking at the climate of West Africa. Now, I want to point out that West Africa, let me pull up a little drawing thing here, is going to be this area right here. So West Africa is actually going to be this area kind of roughly right in here. So if you notice, looking at the map here, that you will find four different climate zones, main climate zones, I should say, in Africa, in West Africa. You have the rainforest down here, semi-arid, which semi-arid and grasslands you might sometimes see called the Sahel region, if you remember from the video yesterday. And then up in the northern part of West Africa, you get desert. So if you think about what are some ways that climate can affect a region, so how can climate kind of impact what people do and for a living? Does it impact what food they grow? Does it impact how well they travel? Does it impact what um, entertainment is available to them even? So think about all the different ways that like climate can impact a place like West Africa. You have rainforests down here along the coast. You got this semi-arid land up here. You got this grassland region, and then you got desert up here in the top. So think about how all those different things can kind of impact what what people can do in a region. Another one we're going to look at is vegetation. So we're going to look at what kind of vegetation you'll find in Africa, and you'll notice that vegetation is directly tied to climate. So the more rain you get in a place right here along the coast, which if you look on the previous map was kind of that rainforest area, you'll notice that the vegetation is a tropical rainforest vegetation. So a ton of trees, a ton of wildlife, that kind of thing. Now, as you get into the savanna region, the montane is what they call it, the steppe region, you lose vegetation because vegetation is tied to how much rainfall you get in a year. So the less rain you get, the less vegetation you can support. So the more rain you get, the more vegetation, which is why you get tropical rainforest along this portion. And then if you go up here to kind of this semi-desert and desert up here, you lose the vegetation because those are your drier areas. Okay, now this one is interesting. Africa as a continent is extremely rich in just general natural resources. You will find a ton of natural resources in Africa. So we're looking at West Africa in particular. So what are some of the things you should notice? Gold, oil, petroleum, uranium, aluminum, diamonds, fish, titanium, iron, phosphate. So things that are incredibly valuable were incredibly valuable in ancient times are incredibly valuable now. Gold especially. Gold, uranium is used for a couple of things, most notably nuclear weapons. Aluminum used for all kinds of stuff. Diamonds, always valuable. Fishing, still valuable. Titanium, iron. So think about all the different things that how these resources could impact what you might do for a living, how these could impact your economy. Gold. So think about what you can do with natural resources like this. Now, this one, I find this one a little interesting. So the story behind this map here is a man by the name, I forget his first name, now that I think about it. The last name, his name was Murdoch. He started studying the different ethnic groups, different tribal groups in West Africa. Now, if you remember, way back at the beginning of the year, back like August, beginning of the year, we talked about an ethnic group is just a small group of people that have a very, very similar cultural traits, very similar religious traditions, that kind of thing. So he started studying the different ethnic groups that you would find in Africa. So each of these little different shades of colors, these different sections, is a single tribal group. Now, if you notice, you get along the coast where there is more rain, higher of better climate type, the number of ethnic groups in an area is a ton. There are a ton of ethnic groups in areas where there's a lot of rainfall. You start moving away from those areas into that semi-arid region, into that desert region, you do not have nearly as many ethnic groups in those places. So not only does climate impact vegetation, it also impacts people in an area. So if a place has a climate that is capable of supporting more people, obviously more people are going to be found in those areas than if you move further inland where you don't have the ability to support a ton of people. So the problem with Africa is a lot of these different groups, these ethnic groups, historically have not liked each other. And so when these countries were created, a lot of the time the borders were just kind of randomly drawn, and ethnic groups that normally historically had hated each other were now forced into a country and said, all right, you guys are a country now, you have to figure this out. Even though they have historically hated each other, they are now forced to kind of run a country together. And that's partially why you hear a lot of Africa about like civil war and just other problems, is because a lot of these tribal groups, these ethnic groups, haven't been able to put aside their differences in a way to run their country. So that's why you see a lot of times there are civil wars in Africa, coups, that kind of thing. Is because a lot of these ethnic groups haven't been able to kind of get along in a sense. So that is one thing I want you to pay attention to is just how many of these ethnic groups fit into areas where the climate matches is good enough to support a higher amount of people in an area. So here is kind of a modern day map of Africa compared to the previous one. If you look at all these different groups, now look at a political map, you see how a lot of these groups were kind of just crammed into a country and said, all right, you all are a country now, you got to figure it out. A good example is Nigeria here. If you go back over here, there are a ton of these ethnic groups in Nigeria. And now Nigeria is a country and they have to try to figure out how they're going to make this all work. So that is partially the problem, the partially part of the political problem in Africa right now is that these tribal groups haven't been able to work together to get things accomplished in a way that benefits the country. They've kind of been stuck in the old tribal conflicts and haven't been able to get past um, part of this. So we are actually, you all apparently are not going to, you all will not do that part. What this one is look at the different things you'll find in West Africa. So kind of, if you want, play around with this. Look up what's each of some of these are, what they are and what you can they use them for. Manganese, bauxite. Look up what those things can be used for. Uranium, platinum, and think about what are some of the benefits of having so many different resources in one area. Think about how climate impacts the ability to use these resources in a beneficial way. Think about the political situation. How this you would think, given all these different resources, that Africa would be a very thriving place. Yet we still see examples of where Africa is just behind because of the political issues they have, because of those ethnic conflicts we were looking at. So think about what you think each of these play into the political situation in Africa now. So that is actually all we're going to do today. Tomorrow we'll start looking at the ancient civilizations in West Africa. Today I just want to give you a breakdown of what you can find in West Africa as far as climate, physical stuff, or physical features, and that kind of thing. If you all have questions over this, let me know. And here's a question to kind of leave you with as we finish here. Do you think large empires could exist in a region like West Africa without the aid of modern travel methods and modern technologies? Do you think it is possible for empires to exist? So come back tomorrow and you all will find out. So if you all have any questions, let me know. Other than that, I hope you all have a good rest of your day, and I will see you all tomorrow.